OBS Studio. It is an application that runs locally on your computer and takes your anything on screen
Mm-hmm.
or any input devices and streams it out.
Nice.
So yeah, so there it goes. There you are. You're live on Facebook and probably YouTube and all of that good stuff. Um, OBS Studio takes your is I'm using OBS Studio on my laptop to capture screens. In
Mm-hmm.
this case, I'm capturing the Zoom screen and rebrug and sending it out on streaming video to Mobcrush. Mobcrush is taking that and sending it out to uh, Facebook, YouTube. Um, what else do we have here? Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Mobcrush itself. Mobcrush also has a non-creator side that is just streams. It was originally created for gamers um, to be able to stream their video game play and incentivize it by giving out gifts in the games and adding ads to their games. But they've been really cool with allowing other people that don't have content like that to go
Right.
ahead and stream what they want to stream.
Yeah, I might need you and your expertise in the near future. We're trying to do a virtual film and theater event. Um, Running into some, I'm looking at different platforms to use. Of course, some you have a limit of 100 people in the room for like Zoom, or like if you're not paying for it. Google Chat Talk or meetings or something like that.
Google Meet, yeah.
And then Microsoft Teams, depending on what your user level is, could have up to 200 or thousands. Um, so for the people who can't make it into the actual room, thinking about streaming it, because I think especially with our film and theater events, when you're having something in a place that people are going to, we normally have anywhere between 100 and 300, maybe sometimes 400 people that physically come to the building. But now that, everybody's at home, everybody's available, we're thinking that's probably going to be more people. And then also being able to control muting and whose screens are showing up, because we like to have free presenters. So we don't want to have people talking over the presenters, and we want to have the presenters face out front. And some of depending on if you're paying for it, will determine of whether or not you're able to have someone kind of DJ it.
Yeah, so the reason I started looking more into all of these is because I did similar things for medical conferences.
Hmm.
We would we would have medical conferences where there were presenters and they would come along and if they wanted to be able to present to more people than were just in the room, we would also have a stream going out to an educational platform and also Facebook and a couple other places.
Hmm.
Um, so, yeah, it's what it turns into is you kind of have to sequester your audience. You have to have some audience that joins and is capable of interacting via one method, and then other audience that's capable of joining and interacting via other methods. Um,
Hmm.
um, Zoom has a more presentational style thing than this, like what we normally do. This is just a
Right.
meeting, so all participants kind of show up and are able to interact pretty easily. Um, and then they have a version that admits more users. I think it's up to 500.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you can have some of the people joining set aside as speakers. Um,
Right.
but like this right now, like this is going out over YouTube and Facebook and Mobcrush. I'm actually seeing some interaction on Mobcrush from a user, Luckers16. I don't know who that is. Um, but it's nice to see, interaction elsewhere. And this is what I would do also in those medical presentations is
Right.
we would see you would have somebody at the control desk would have each one of these streams open, and we'd be able to take questions from the live interaction and redirect them to the speakers through a layer of interaction, so it's not as distracting for the
Right.
presenters. Um, Interestingly, I'm going to be doing my first theater piece, like theater online piece, tomorrow. We have there's a little festival going on, and it's these are all short plays, like short one acts, maybe 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And this one is set on a film set, and so I'm gonna be doing some interesting things with pulling the audience in, like a live audience in, hopefully. Um, so
Nice.
so tomorrow at 7, uh, should see all the promotional stuff on my Facebook page tomorrow, but. It's kind of cool. Like it's been an interesting time as far as interactive and presentations.
Right. And I think, the creativity of trying to recreate, people being in the same room has gotten very interesting with table reads and, things like that.
Yeah, yeah. So a lot of why people have, hey Jay, have been doing table reads is because there was some initial questioning around licensing.
Mm.
So a lot of license agreements for performance require you not to videotape them.
Right.
Um, so it's been interesting. A lot of these have been table reads because you can do a table read without breaking those license rules.
Wait, you can table read a copyrighted play without having the rights to show it?
Yeah, because it's not a performance.
Wow.
Nice little
So wait,
loophole.
so like you can pretty much put on a show of like any play that you want as long as it's like you're just reading from a script.
Sort of. It gets
I
it.
mean, I guess it depends on what your intention is, right?
Yeah, a lot people don't usually take advantage of it. Like they don't like do table reads to like. First of all, you rarely, if ever, charge anything for a table read. It's usually by donation,
Wow.
um,
Fair
and
enough.
then people will often uh, not. The, nobody ever puts as much effort into a table read as they do a full production. So there's not a set. There's not you know, uh, all of those things are not.
You have received a new dispatch route. New dispatch route is now active.
Oh, what do you got going on there, Jay?
Oh my hey guys. My tablet in my truck has been giving me the finger all morning, so just trying to make sure I'm straight before I head back on the road. How's everybody doing this morning?
Good. How are you?
Yeah. So if that's the only thing that goes wrong in my day, I don't care. But every now and then it just flips me off. Like I'm not working today. I don't care where you got to go. Like I need you to do literally everything in my truck. Put it together. It's like a printer. Only I'm in a truck because printers do that all the time. I'm sorry. This is an important document, so I don't care.
Wow, we got quite the Facebook audience this morning. We've got, oh, hey, Marshall.
It's not even noon. I'm eating licorice. What's wrong with me?
It's not even noon. It's Corona time, right?
Right.
Not on the truck, people.
Not on the truck? Oh, right, because you got to actually do things and be places on time.
Yeah, we can't even have mouthwash with alcohol in it, or we'll get fined.
Wow.
I think that's probably a good thing.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah.
Absolutely, no alcohol whatsoever can be on the truck. No alcohol, nothing that makes you drowsy. No cocaine. You believe that? No cocaine? What's up with
They
that?
have to specifically say no cocaine.
Exactly.
That means somebody had cocaine on their truck.
I tried to say it in Spanish. I said cocaine. They're like, no cocaine. I'm like, little couple bumps from Captain Crunch, you're good for the whole day.
Do you get tested for amphetamines? I know that's a big thing too.
If you do something stupid, they test you for everything. Everything.
Yep.
Urine, hair, your SAT scores, whatever you, I don't know.
SAT scores.
Whether you know Blue's Clues, everything. The minute you hit something important, everything.
They test if you have hair. You can just see that.
Well, if you don't have hair, then they'll go get hair from other places. I'll leave it alone because it's a family show, but you get what I'm saying.
I do mark these as adults, so you're all right. Yeah, no, I don't know if I could work in an industry where it's that that sampled. Like I briefly worked as a photographer for a jewelry company, and they wanted to do random drug testing of me because I was taking pictures of jewelry, and I'm like, nope.
What?
It's like, I don't need to be sober to do this.
Hey, James, isn't uprigging kind of like that?
Uprigging?
Yeah. Don't they check those guys pretty
Oh,
regularly
like
hard?
riggers, like union riggers?
Yeah.
Yeah. They can. They don't usually test them on as far as I am aware, they don't usually test them on a regular basis. They test them if it's much like truckers. If something goes wrong, they'll test the crap out of you.
Yeah. We get randoms every now and then, but it's rare, and usually you see it coming. Like if your truck's about to be serviced, they might random do everybody that's there, but they're not going to put you over on the highway and just test you, like, you know. Well, not this company. I don't know. But
Yeah, I'm sure all the companies are different and operate by their own
yeah, I
rules.
hear that UPS and FedEx are probably like the strictest. They have the busiest fleets and the most, and they get away with the most stuff. I never see FedEx or UPS get pulled over for speeding, and they're always speeding.
Oh yeah, no, I used to.
Yeah.
I told you.
I'm like, how do you not? Don't worry about them. MC license. But them. No. You.
Yeah,
I
know. It's weird. Like, are they paying the whole authorities off? What is happening?
well, that's how they deal with parking tickets. Parking tickets for FedEx and UPS. That's pretty much how they deal with it because they basically like in each jurisdiction pay a set amount per month, and it's a large amount, but they like they don't really get parking tickets for double parking or parking legally.
Yeah, but that tractor trailer's pulling double trailers doing 85 miles an hour in a 60. That's
ridiculous.
not smart.
It's crazy.
But yeah, like a couple months ago, a FedEx truck actually hit my parked car. Luckily, luckily he was there. Luckily my neighbor saw it, and the guy did pull over and try and like look me up. But my neighbor saw it and called me, and I think that I was just happened to be working from home that day. I think this was before like yeah, this was definitely before COVID. Um,
Okay.
and So yeah, I lucked out because if I didn't, I would have had to pay that whole thing unless he would have left all of his information, which they probably would. But he
He
was
probably would.
cool and like, but I still had to get the car towed and then had to get a rental and all that stuff. And then like they told
Oh,
me
he must
that,
have really nailed you. He must have really hit you.
oh yeah, no, it like took my like, you know when they sideswipe you, it's like this is the second time this has happened to me.
Wow.
They sideswipe you and like your bumper like doesn't come off, but like it's like not really hanging on there, and then like there's other stuff that's hanging below your car, and yeah, it's not fun. And then I realized that the rental enterprise rental place that's near the airport doesn't give you a ride to your car, which is why I chose that specific service area in the first place. I was like, oh, I'll just get a ride, and they said they would, and it's a whole long story, but anyway, it's not fun. But at least the guy was like nice about it. I mean, like if something crappy like that's gonna happen, it's not, I was a little bit inconvenient.
He was
You know
nice because
the
he got caught.
the, the actual the actual delivery side of things, not the large, double and triple trailers that move stuff around for FedEx and UPS. The actual delivery side, in many parts of the country, those drivers have some really insane habits. They drive around fast and they honk. They honk. A lot of them honk, and I've been trying to figure out why they do that. And I even told somebody not to do that. To literally like just honk when they're when they're making a turn or whatever. Does anybody know why that happens?
Why they honk when they turn?
It's probably to warn people that
I
they're,
Yeah.
can't see.
coming at you.
A lot of the drivers work in the warehouse first as forklift drivers, and if you've ever been in a warehouse that's very busy, forklift drivers are flying, and they're constantly beeping their horns, let you know they're either backing up, turning, going for a door. Them and the post office, they're beeping their horn all the time. So then they transition that in their delivery trucks, so that when they come around corners in those vans and in those box trucks, you're aware of where they are, so that if they hit something, they're gonna ask them, well, did you let everybody know you were there? Like, yeah, I was honking. Doesn't exactly exonerate them, but at least they say, yeah, I did something to let you know, hey, I'm on the way. The
Well,
same way we have to honk our horn. When I back up, I have to honk my horn, or I'm going to get in trouble.
yeah, no,
Not that you can't see me, but
I think that what actually happened with this guy, or at least what he said, was that either he was making a turn because I was parked like barely near like the corner, and I guess he was making a turn or somebody was turning in front of him, and then like he had to like try and get around them, and he hit me. Like I don't know, like I hope that's true. Like I mean, I've gotten my mirror knocked off so many times it's not even funny. Because they redid the road like 20 years ago, and then they made the sidewalks wider, which of course made the streets narrower. But it's one of those two-way streets that like barely has enough room for both ways, like
Mm.
on a good day, and people fly down my street.
Yeah, well, I mean that's all the traffic engineering that we don't do here in Philly.
But like those little speed cushions, they're funny. Like even when I'm on like certain roads or there's like a speed cushion, I'm like, I'm not gonna slow down. I'm gonna just like wheel between them and like,
I,
and I'm like, cool, like,
I think we have all the people that are probably going to join us for this morning, half an hour in. But I wanted to acknowledge Todd joined us. Todd's
I finally made it.
a great guy, and he's been trying to join for a couple of minutes here.
Did
Um,
it?
and you have video and you have audio and everything. It's great. The only thing you don't have is your name on the bottom. I can just tell that you're using a Galaxy S8.
It's my first time. Be gentle.
Okay, all right. We'll be gentle with you.
All
Um,
right.
uh, I
Pants
ha-
on or pants off session? What are we doing?
oh, I have shorts on, but they're workout shorts, so
I take my pants off as soon as I get in the truck, so I'm with you, man.
yeah, it's
I'm
not
not going to stand up.
all right. Yeah,
I may stand up,
I mean,
flash the kids at home.
we are streaming this out, live on multiple platforms, so I don't, I might want to watch out for that.
It's funny you say the hands on hands off thing. The other day I was on the phone with one of my friends and we were talking and I was like, oh, I really have to go outside. It's a really nice day, but I was like, I gotta put on pants. Like she's like, don't worry, I'm pantsless too. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
decisions you have to make.
Um, I've been thinking about formalizing these a little bit, and I haven't really come up with a way to formalize them yet. Although, like we've been doing, topics and stuff like that, so it's kind of cool. Um, uh, uh, but now I forget even what I wanted to talk about today. But did I buy this? Did I buy this? I know you can't see it, Jay, but I have this Canon lens. Yeah, this Canon lens mug. Did I buy that off of you?
No, you didn't buy it off me, but it's pretty awesome. I was still Team Nikon when I was at your studio, but now I've moved over to Canon, and now I kind of miss my Nikon sometimes. So I have no brand loyalty. I don't care.
Yeah,
Team Nikon on this end. Team Nikon
Yeah,
all the way.
I
I'm.
only switched to Canon because I shot for the Army so much, and that's all they had was Canon. Like brand new shiny Canon. I'm like, well, I guess I'm Team Canon now.
I've been Team Canon since day one.
I
But
know.
but I've always said to people like people ask me or used to ask me a lot more, what camera system should I shoot? Blah blah blah. I'm
Oh
like
boy.
whatever one you're comfortable with. You want to use Olympus, use Olympus. You want to use Nikon, use Nikon. Whatever works. They all do the
Any
same thing.
camera system can take a 4 picture.
Yes.
I knew a guy that had a Hasselblad. He was an investment lawyer that shot photography as a hobby and went out years before we met and bought a full-fledged Hasselblad, lenses, everything, and he sucked. And he was a nice guy, but I really wanted to just punch him and just rob him of his Hasselblad because I know I could do such a great job with camera. And he had a monster. That thing zooms in like a military scope, and he just sucked
Yeah.
No,
because his
my
lighting was bad, his composition was bad. Whatever you think can be bad, it went bad. Like the movie that everyone's talking about how bad it is, John Henry. It was that bad. His work was as bad as John Henry the movie. Awful,
Oh my!
awful.
My dad was like that. Like he got this expensive camera. I don't know if it was like super duper expensive, but it was like I don't know, it was like the early to mid '80s when he got the camera that focused and stuff. That was a big deal. But like he didn't know how to focus. He didn't use the automatic part of it. And like I swear to God, like 70% of his photos were like literally just like a haze. Like you couldn't even like. I was
And was
actually
he
going
always
through.
happy about the photos? Was he always like, "Yeah, I nailed it"? And you like, Dad? Should we tell him?
No, like
Those
he would
those are some really long slideshows.
take the photos. Yeah, yeah. He would take the photos and then like get them developed and then like hoard them somewhere. So like
He would
basically
hide
like
them.
not hide them, but like my parents were hoarders, so like I'm still sort of like a trying to like figure out how I change my like learned behavior from them, but also like b trying to sort through all of our combined stuff and figure out what the balance is. But then like so I found all these photos and I'm like, all right, I'd like to keep the ones that I give a shit about. And they're like and there's like nice ones. Like he took one with me and my mom. I think it was Dominican Republic. I was like, this is a really good photo. Like, and all the other ones were like really hazy and stuff. And you're like,
I hope your dad's not watching because you just put them all on Front Street just now, man.
oh no,
You can forget about your birthday, buddy.
yeah. Well, I mean, Yeah. He's maybe watching from heaven. Who knows? But
Oh, I'm sorry, bro. I didn't know you passed on. I feel you.
no, yeah. But yeah. No, my dad was like notorious and stuff like that. He's like, I need this new gadget so I'll get organized. And I'm like, no, you're just an unorganized dude. You don't need a Palm Pilot. Like, you're just gonna get this and like be unorganized with this thing that you have.
My dad was had some training as a photographer at Design Center in Los Angeles, and
Wow.
and I love photography, and as a lighting designer, I was always interested in that. And in undergrad, my buddy and I took a 10-day backpacking trip through the Olympic Mountains, and we brought way too much camera gear. I mean, the backpacks were like 80 pounds.
Oh,
and we
Lord.
we had film cameras, Nikon film cameras at that time. Had I think an F3, and was doing all manual shots, trying to just really hone down my skills a little bit. And I think I developed 10 rolls or more of shots, and I brought them to my dad, and it was this literal like slaughter fest. He was like, "Up, composition, composition, composition. This is out of focus. Composition, out of focus, and color.
Wow.
This is underexposed. This one's okay."
So,
You winner.
Wow.
uh,
It's like Simon on American Idol. Like, no, it's not,
no, no, yeah, no. You if you
Are you?
if
Are
you
you?
have parents in the creative field or like who've been through art school, like they are some of the most critical parents you will ever have, and it's
Kind of weird.
what it's good. It's good too because
It is,
they're
Because they're honest. They're very honest with you about stuff. They're not going to sugarcoat it. They're going to hit you right in the gut on your birthday. Happy birthday, man.
my mom, I love her, and she's still
Good start. Good
working
start.
to this day, and yeah, it was just like you said. Like if I would show her stuff I was working on, she'd be like, yeah, that's interesting. Uh-huh. Um, mm, mm-hmm.
I just want to interject a few things. You guys could make it a lot more simple if you just use your smartphone for all those pictures. It weighs a lot less.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah,
So
yeah.
let's talk
Yeah,
about
but you
people
can.
who use smartphones. So
Oh,
I was perusing Facebook and people were posting pictures and I'm like, God, you have a smartphone. You can view this before, but you decided to post a blurry picture. Even in 2020, people are still posting blurry
Right.
pictures.
Delete.
and they won't use flash. Turn the flash on. You're in a club. No. It's
That's
just
what
like
the filter is for, isn't it? To change it
you
later?
can't. No,
Right.
you can't
Fix it in
outfilter an
post
underexposed
production,
shot.
right?
No.
You know what I hate? I hate when you're at a concert and people are using their flash behind you, and you're like,
Oh,
motherfucker, that's not going to do anything from
Come on,
300 feet
man.
away. You
Yeah,
know?
or at a football game. You're like, really?
Yeah.
What are you doing with all those flashes?
I
Especially the
hate
ones
when
that
you're at
have
a
the
wedding.
little, the ones that have
I'm
the
a wedding
glow
photographer
effect for a
sometimes,
minute.
and
I hate
yeah,
those.
sometimes the bride wants she wants me to stop shooting, so that the cell phone people can take pictures. Like, let me get a picture.
Mm-mm.
You want the
Mm-mm.
guy you paid $3,000 or more to stop shooting, so
Right.
that Samsung S10 right here can take your shot. You got
No.
it.
There's a reason why I don't do weddings. This is it. Like this is
Hey James, I'm only a second shooter now. That's it, and I love it. I come in, I snap my images, I give them to my quarterback guy, I get paid, I go home. I don't deal with the bride enough. Oh man, bro, I'm done. And I used to
Nice.
love weddings. I used to love them. Not anymore.
Hey Victoria, we have
Hey, hey,
Victoria joining
Hey
us
Victoria.
too.
Hey.
hi guys.
I
Uh,
don't like going to a wedding. I love going to weddings. I'm like, it's my whole thing. I like always like dance with the bride, have a cigar with the groom, get really drunk, and like
The wedding crasher, man. You're
I'm that
awesome.
fun dude who like talks with the in-laws and stuff. It's great.
Like,
Why
you
don't
know
you
it's not
dance
gonna
with a
last, right?
groom?
It's not gonna
Why
last.
can't you dance with a groom? What's up with that?
I mean,
Drunk
like
enough, might.
historical gender roles are just a thing. I don't know. But yeah, no, but I couldn't imagine working for a wedding because like people are assholes about their
Yes.
weddings. It's like, you
Yes,
know
they
what?
are.
Like you're not that fucking important. Like and nobody really cares about how special your like shit is. Like
It's
people
their
want
day.
people want a good band, alcohol, and okay food. Cuz let's be honest, like most of the time wedding food is pretty shitty unless you have like
I've had phenomenal food twice.
yeah, like
Twice.
It depends
And
on
the
the
you know,
one
fire
thing,
hall that you're at. Depends on the fire
yeah,
hall.
you see every wedding now, even as a second shooter, there's always one woman that's very, very inappropriately dressed and doesn't care.
It's the
One chick
bride's
had, I
mom.
swear that she had on like a gold bikini and like a sheer skirt to a super duper formal wedding, and the DJ, the videographer, and all photographers were like, and like I mean, people had on like, people had on tuxes and like tailor-made suits, and everybody was like, it was like the Grammys, and she comes in like in like a Cardi B moment. We're just like, really?
Um,
My he was like, keep shooting. You want me to shoot that? All
there,
right.
there's a story to be told here about inappropriate clothing in all situations. Um, the most inappropriate thing I've ever seen a person wear was my wife and I went to Egypt for our honeymoon. We're touring one of the more popular sites. Most of our tours were like very not crowded, but we went to this one site and it was super crowded that day. There was just a lot of people there. There was a Chinese tour group. There was a British tour group. This one British woman was, and that's not being racist. She was British.
Why she gotta be a British woman?
I don't know why she's got to be a British woman, but she definitely was.
Why is he
James
starting
with the
off and it's
B
not
word.
racist? That's what you know it's going to be crazy. I'm not racist, but just
So this one British woman
I love
is.
it.
So we're Egypt is a half Christian, half Muslim country. Both sides are very well recognized and respected, um, but you do things in Egypt to respect the Muslim culture. So women dress modestly, sometimes cover their heads. It's not a requirement. It's just considered appropriate, especially if you're entering a mosque or holy site. Um, and men dress with long pants and long sleeves. It's just what you do. So this woman, admittedly, we're in a pharaonic site, so it's not like we're in a mosque or something. Is wearing a, I don't have you are any of you guys familiar with the brand Wicked Weasel?
Yes.
Okay.
No.
Some of the photographers are Wicked Weasel is a brand of bikini from Australia, and Australia has no kind of laws against no kinds of laws against exposure or what you're wearing. You can walk around naked if you want on a beach. Um, Wicked Weasel bikinis are basically designed for people to be naked with a piece of cloth on them. And so
Like
she's
what? What's his name? The guy that does Brat wore a few years ago. It was like a green, like almost bikini, but the straps come up over your shoulder.
oh, Borat, yeah. So
Yeah, do you remember that picture?
yes. So but these are clear. These are see through.
Oh,
Wow.
Um, so she's wearing a white.
What's the point?
Well, I don't know.
covered.
She
Covered.
yeah, you're covered.
It's
You
called
have a covering
minimum
on.
effort. Minimum effort. That's all she wanted.
So she had the white Wicked Weasel bikini on underneath of a white see-through like wrap, like you would wear to a beach.
He was double bagged.
Um, and you could just see everything, and whew,
What
boy.
was her attitude? What was her attitude like? Did anybody mention anything to
Proud?
her?
Was she
Right,
proud?
walk into the room like,
Yeah.
She was, yeah, no, she was very proud, like Cheryl
She's
said.
not shy at all.
Very, very much the privilege of not having been told no ever in your life on display.
But did she have that particular English imperialism where she's like, everybody should be wearing this?
Yes. Oh
Everybody
yeah.
should be
Oh
wearing this.
yeah. Absolutely. No. No. She
I
had
think
no.
James just gave us coding for white people.
Yes. Yes. The mayo has gone bad. Throw the whole thing out. Wash your hands
My girls
afterwards.
going
Okay.
wild convention. This is the girls going wild convention. Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
yeah. I've seen some pretty bad, if you can call them outfits, at the Italian festival here in Wilmington, Delaware one year.
I'm
It was
from
the moment when
Wilmington,
I knew it
Delaware.
was time to.
Yeah.
I knew it was time to leave. Like we were out and I was winning, goldfish, and this lady walks up pushing a baby stroller, and she's got on a fishnet dress with nothing else under it.
Ooh.
Like
Oh,
Nice.
people were like, "Ma'am, you can't come in here." And she's like, "Whatever, I'm outside." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, well, time to."
These are the same people that don't wear masks. These are the exact same people.
yeah, I'm outside. What are you doing?
St. Anthony's
It's
Italian
a free,
Festival.
it's a public place, and I'm like, wow, we're just gonna. And I looked at her kids, and she's got like one in the stroller, and she's got one by the hand.
Kids?
Like,
Wait, kids?
ooh,
And
yeah,
she had one in the
kids
oven.
with her. And her
Was she
friend was
British?
with her, and I'm like, your friend didn't look at you and be like, yo, I'm wearing
Nope.
clothes. How about you? Like,
Yo, I'm wearing clothes.
Never
What?
says anything. The friend's like, girl,
no.
you look good. Girl, you gonna kill that.
That's
Wear
probably
that.
what happened before they left the house. Like, girl, that outfit, you gonna get you a man.
You gonna shut it down.
Exactly what she's doing.
Shut it down. No.
Those are the friends that I wish I could find. Like,
I know, right? They're like, you're the best ever. I'm like, no.
Those are the bravest people on the planet Earth. They do not care.
But I still feel bad for her
I
kids.
freak out if my fly is down. If my
You
fly
know?
is down, I'm like, oh my God, my fly's down. I freak out over that. I had to come out the house with a sticker and a prayer on. Like, Jay, put your clothes on. Really, dude. Come on now.
And and I bet you your kids
Wow.
were probably like, or at least the one that was walking was probably like, Mom, like, like, I don't know, like, I can see everything, like, there was nothing underneath this fishnet
Wow.
dress,
Yeah.
like, no underwear whatsoever. Everything
I want to know,
was
Wow.
showing.
being an artist, and having been in so many design meetings, I want to know the concept. Like, okay, so sure, you're gonna do this.
what's the concept? Could you explain maybe the
Like,
thinking here?
I love
Yeah,
it.
like,
I love
I'm
it.
going
What's
for
the-
clothes,
what's the-
but not really clothes.
what's the pivotal image for you? When did it start? How? What? Like,
What are you trying to say with this outfit?
One of the funniest experiences I had at a live show was P-Funk a few years back. And, everyone was grooving really good. It was a great show. And this woman decided to get on stage and rip off her top. And unfortunately, there wasn't a lot of, I don't know. I don't know how to put it in a nice way, but she wasn't very attractive. And it took about a few seconds for the band to go, oh, and like call security to get her off. It was like, how embarrassing can that be for somebody to display their goods and be shuttled off quickly? It was rough.
when I was 18, I did an internship with RTL in Germany as a assistant cameraman position, as intern's position. And we had some really weird calls, and because it was news gathering. We went to see this in the middle of a field, this ultimate fighting championship that they literally had just put up something in the middle of the field, completely, next to barely legal kind of situation. And so there's all these people fighting. And at intermission, there was a striptease. And I was like, oh, interesting. And so, but why did they choose those people? That's what I want to know.
Well, casting is important. Casting is very important. There's that cartoon going around with all the different departments, and yeah, casting is important.
And I looked at my cameraman, and he was just like, just go over there and get a couple beers.
um, yeah, no, yeah, I one of the best, one of the best relationships between what's going on now and just like these kinds of things that I've seen lately is the idea of, do you return your shopping cart to the shopping cart corral?
Yes.
I do.
I've actually returned a lot of shopping carts that I didn't use.
Yeah,
to
yeah,
the shopping
me
cart.
too.
Yeah.
I was talking to a nephew of mine a few years back, and we are going shopping. And when we get to our car, he's sitting in the parking spot next to us. I said, "Dude, take it back to the corral." And he says, "Uncle Todd, you don't get it. That's somebody's job. If we do
Ugh.
that, they won't have a job."
Wow.
I'm like, dude, the only reason they have a job is because you don't put your card away. Like, I mean,
Yeah, no, but they'd still have a job if you
You gotta get it from the corral. They just don't have to.
Yes,
They're
to
taking
the
up
store.
spaces.
yeah,
yeah. So
There'll
there's
be
this.
times you're like, oh, open space, and you go to pull in, and it's a freaking shopping cart.
Yeah, there's this. So the whole concept is, if you are willing to put your shopping cart back in a shopping cart corral, there's no, you don't get anything out of that. Like you don't win a prize. Nobody like looks at you and is like, oh, you're a good citizen. Like it's just you put your shopping cart back in a shopping cart corral. Same thing with being respectful of other people in general right now.
You don't
AJ,
have
you're
to give
muted.
individuality for decency.
what's this
You know,
respect thing? What? What?
Sorry.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. So there's a whole bunch of things with the shopping cart thing. Like I've definitely been out and have seen the wind blow, and then shopping carts are moving all around and hitting cars. And at that point, that's up to the car owner to fix whatever damage. So that's kind of being an asshole to leave your shopping cart out at that point. Also, the whole thing about
Yeah.
people having a job and that's their job to put it back. Well, don't be fucking lazy. If you've got legs and you can use them, put it back.
you still have to put it back
And
from
then-
the corral.
And then there's the whole dropping the mask and the gloves and everything everywhere. And now that the earth is finally healing and the ozone is fixing itself and birds and shit are coming back, and now you're going to pollute all the drainage ways with all of your medical waste. Good job. Like
I tell the bodega owner. I live in Wilmington too, by the way.
Okay.
And I live right by Creston Liquor Mart. You'll know where that is probably if you're from Wilmington. And there's a little bodega, and they sell the masks and they sell some gloves and everything else. And so what happens is they'll walk the half a block to like in front of my place, and then you see all these masks and stuff laying on the ground and trash. And I tell the bodega owners, you don't have to legally, but it'd be great if you walk on over and clean up some of that stuff once in a while, since you sell it. Yeah.
We had trash blow all over our block because of this wind yesterday, and it's annoying because there's no way to know if it's just uncontrolled because of the wind or if people are just dropping stuff all over the place.
I've been thinking a little bit about the engineering of all this stuff, because early on when during this pandemic, I very quickly started using gloves when I was going out to a variety of stores, and I've never thought about it, but in some stores at the corral, at the cart corral, there's a trash can, and in other stores there aren't, and in stores that I thought there once was, now I think they took them away. And I think it might have to do with the fact that they fill up really fast and they don't want. I don't know what it is. It's really weird thing where I thought I remembered a trash can at those places were gone, and I was wondering what I do a lot of thinking, and I'm sure everyone on this chat kind of does too, about like what's the thinking behind certain things that you run into, sort of mundane everyday things. And is there any thinking? Probably there is. Where there isn't, but there's probably also some where there is, and it's just not my thinking.
Right. Yeah, I constantly run into that with government stuff. Like, what was the thinking? What brought this on? And then I go, well, maybe they weren't actually thinking, and then I go, no, somebody had to be thinking.
Yeah.
Just they were
I
just
feel that
dumb.
way about corporate stuff that gets released, like when there's an ad that's obviously inappropriate or obviously racist, like, and everyone's like, "Well, how did it get out?" Like, no, they had a meeting on this.
Many meetings.
Right.
Many
You don't
meetings.
accidentally release a movie ad or an HM billboard above Times Square. Oh, did I hit enter? Oh no, that's not how it works. No,
There
Yeah.
was
they
no
had a
lapse
meeting
of
about that, and
judgment.
somebody said,
It's like they don't.
There's an approval
"Who
somewhere.
the hell
Somebody's
approved
signature is
that?
on it.
Well,
Who
it's
the
like
hell approved that? Like,
they
how did
don't
you
listen
not
to
know that was
black
going to be
people.
offensive
They don't listen to black people or the women or the like,
to
you know,
nobody? Nobody.
anybody or LGBT community. Like, even now that we're kind of in the room, it's just like,
This is why my big push. We're not in the room yet. This is why my big push is for production companies to have people of color amongst their actual executive boards and people
Right.
that are actually doing the production. Because people greenlighting stuff, even if you only have one, when you have only one person of color on the team that is having that meeting, yeah, it does
But do a
suck.
panel or something. Like, grab a few people. Like, hey, is this out of line? Hey, most
Right.
people on the street are going to be like, yeah, don't do that. They're going to shoot you. Okay, cool. Thanks again. Something.
Like one of those
Like,
panels where they
have
pull you into the
somebody, you
room.
know?
Yeah. Like
Wow,
they,
and
I
that
guess they
really
used to
didn't
do
take
that,
a long
right?
time. What you just did there, that took about
Hey,
3 seconds.
3
Yeah.
seconds. Hey,
I
is
can
this a
Hey,
I can
little
tell
look, I
racist?
you
have this picture on my cell phone. Would you tell me what you think about it? Just real quick.
Here's
This
I can
is
tell you
$5.
all
Give
this.
me your opinion. Like, don't release that. It's going to be bad.
Yeah. I can tell you guys all something as the white guy in the room. As long as you promise not to tell other white people, okay?
Okay.
Does everyone promise?
Mhm.
Promise?
Don't worry. They
Sure,
won't listen
sure.
to us.
No,
Okay.
no.
There's still a lot of racism.
Yep.
Oh, there has?
Oh
I
wow.
I didn't know.
I didn't know if you
But we
know
had
that.
Obama. I
I
thought
thought
it
it
was
was
over.
over.
Oh, it's his fault. It's his fault,
Oh
obviously,
my
right?
God.
I
He
thought
made
we
it
were
happen.
past that.
The
Yeah,
the
if we didn't
full
have
the
Obama,
full
racism would
court.
have gone away a long time ago. Okay, it's his fault. But I have these conversations with my white friends, and they have a hard time with white privilege, very much,
yeah.
very much, and they get very uncomfortable. So I have a lot of uncomfortable conversations, and I try and find different ways to say it different times. But like one of my friends said, "You act like you know what it's like to be black," and I said, "Well, I just try and listen to my black friends a little bit, and I'm just kind of and that we have to
You
try."
understand that we're not just complaining because it's Thursday. We generally want
Right.
you to stop fucking shooting at us.
Yes.
You do,
But it's
yes.
hard.
Please
I'm
stop
really
doing
trying to
that.
have these conversations, and a lot of my friends get uncomfortable. My one friend said, "I can't talk to you about certain things." I said, "You're right. You can't." I'm okay with
No,
that.
you can't.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm sorry, but you're just wrong sometimes. It
I don't want to
happens.
hear. I don't want to hear a black joke just because it's us two white guys. I don't need to hear it. You know what I mean? I really don't. You know. So it's crazy.
Yeah, I love I love the abject um the abject, like, just drawing out of all the people who are not told no. They're just not they're not told no. There's this guy, the Atlas Gym over in Belmar.
Uh-huh.
Oh yeah.
What?
Because you can't work out outside like they were doing right out front.
Right. And then also he's got, okay, so there's a lot of things to unpack with this guy.
Right. His
He's
mask. His mask.
he, his
The
mask, his
mask,
whole
oh, yeah.
attitude. He but he has a GoFundMe up, right? And now, in my opinion, this GoFundMe is against the terms of service of GoFundMe. But the GoFundMe is raising funds to pay for people's citations if the gym or any of the members get cited for going to the gym. Then this GoFundMe funds are supposed to pay for their citations, and that's just, like, it, anything that breaks down to a citation only, or like, I'll for the white folks watching and the white folks on this chat, I will clue you into something. When it says fine or imprisonment on the law, that means it's legal for white folks who have money and illegal for everyone else.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's good. I don't have money, so it's
Yeah, pretty much.
Right with us.
Why? That's a really good point, James. Why do you think that?
Pretty much. Welcome to the cook.
What?
Oh, Jay is just breaking up. What were you saying, T?
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So
I'm in the
just trying
mountains,
to figure
man.
out.
Sorry.
I was talking a little bit about this with another friend the other day. You know, there is and should be a lot of checks and balances in our system, but that what you just said is so spot on. Like, how did we get to that point? And even if we started at that point, how do we stay at that point?
We got to that point.
I know I'm saying it's super naive, and I apologize for that.
No, it's
you're
nothing
good.
to apologize for. I mean, we got to that point because of Jim Crow. We got to that point because there was a time in this country when wealthy landowners who were all white, because the laws made it so that they were all white. You couldn't own land if you weren't white. And if you weren't a man, this isn't just a exclusively black people problem. It's a women problem too. They had the land, they had the only voice in government, and they wanted to keep it that way. But they wanted to make it look like, oh, we're trying.
But I mean, do you have faith in the Supreme Court?
No.
Depends on the Supreme Court. Depends on who.
Do you have faith in the idea of it?
I have faith in the idea of it. Yeah.
Yeah, the other, yes.
So,
It's been bastardized, though.
Actually, so you guys know that they were broadcasting the oral arguments live, like, for the first time in history, and I was looking into them, and okay, on certain issues where there's activist judges who say that they're actually originalists, or
Crazy.
we want to get rid of abortion, but there's all this precedent that's saying that it's fine. So what are you gonna do? But other than those specific cases, I could actually see all of the justices actually weighing the consequences of what their decision could do, and all of the implications of how should they decide based on precedent and laws, and which things take factors over which, and there's so many complicated things. But I didn't realize how much was in the balance inside the Supreme Court. We're talking everyday stuff, not the stuff that you're thinking about all the time, like the cases that get on the news. So there was one case that's basically in the balance is the sovereignty of basically half of Oklahoma. And you're you would never think that was going to happen. And I actually trust the institution more now than I did before.
Well, that's good, because I think that there has been in this current administration an attempt to take away some of the respect that we have for that branch of government, and it's very dangerous, because in fact that branch of government doesn't have any teeth. It's all belief, right? It's all.
Well, what's happened is they're stocking it with all conservatives now on every level of the judicial system. I mean, they're not doing a lot of appointees for cabinets or different things like that, but judges they're ramming through.
Yeah, it's not just belief. It's also norms. It used to be a judicial hearing. No matter which side of the political aisle or where on the political spectrum you sat, the questions were about neutrality. Now they're not about neutrality anymore, and they're not putting in place judges who are neutral. Which that used to be the thing. That used to be the litmus test. Are you able to take are you able to be Solomonic, so to speak? Are you able to take a case that has no clear right and no clear wrong and issue a judgment that isn't influenced by politics?
It's fair for everybody.
If the belief of the people of the United States falls away from the Supreme Court, what power do they have?
Yeah, but I think it
I mean,
comes
they have
down
a lot
to
of power. The thing is that like that's the thing. The reason why I have to drop off after this point, but the reason why I believe like have more faith in them as an institution is because they have a fuck ton of power, but they know it, and they are really, really, really trying not to exercise that in a way that'll blow the fucking world up. Like they can blow the fucking world
How?
up, but they haven't. How? I mean, their decisions are the law of the land. So like we're talking about literally the sovereignty of half of Oklahoma. We're talking about
Yeah.
uh,
I think you're misunderstanding.
separation of powers. We're talking about all sorts of things. If you just like go through some of the cases that were recently gone, they have the power to like really fuck some shit up. Like,
I get that, but what has to happen is that the people whose decisions are being, because they don't change law. The legislative branch does that. They don't enforce law. The executive branch does that. So,
but they can nullify law.
They interpret it.
No, but when law, like when they interpret them, so when they interpret a dispute, the law becomes the law of the land. Like that is the law.
Yeah, how they say that the law should be applied becomes how the law is applied. Or they can also nullify law, which they can say, okay, this isn't law anymore.
Yeah.
Constitutional.
I gotta go. I'll try and come back after my stand up if you guys are around.
All right, thanks, Charles.
All right, see ya.
See you later.
Yeah, and I mean, I get your point that a lot of it is derived on faith in the system, but that's true of all of the branches.
Isn't it super dangerous for the other branch or branches of government to put so much fissures in the belief that we as the people have for that particular
divide
branch?
and conquer. That's all about divide and conquer.
I mean, but they've been doing that for decades, and all of it has been in an attempt to direct power towards the executive branch, whether it was a Democrat or a Republican in the executive branch. It's always been about directing power towards the executive branch and making that the most powerful branch of government. Even during the Obama administration, we were so far past equality amongst the branches that are supposed to be co-equal that it was just insane. I mean, this started in the Reagan era, but every executive has pushed it and pushed it and pushed it.
Yeah.
How do we fix that? I have no idea. We need to get people.
Well, I think when they opened up the arguments, like Charles was saying, I think that was a really beautiful step. Mm-hmm. Because you heard him. He said, "I gained some faith in those people by watching them work."
Yeah, that's true.
And I think transparency can be the answer to a lot of things. Like what you were saying, what brought up the conversation for me was about this whole situation about fines versus imprisonment. We have to make it visible to the power class.
Well, you know what was said the other day, by the way? I think, not Mitch McConnell, the other jackass, Graham. I think it's Lindsey Graham. He said that if RBG goes down, this will be different than what happened the last time when it was the last year of Obama's presidency. So they're not going to say, no, let's let the people decide. They're going to try and put another justice through.
Well, I mean, McConnell is just he's not an appropriate politician. He does things to aggrandize himself and his party, instead of being a representative of the people that he supposedly works for.
Right. Yeah, like stuff that gets voted on by the House and sent to the Senate probably should come up for a vote most times, but he just leaves them in a stack, doesn't get around to them.
Yeah.
And I guess where my naivete comes in is like you asked a question. You mentioned the thing about fines versus imprisonment, and I like with naivete think, oh well, that should be given to the Supreme Court, because I assume that there would be enough judges that would care about that, or even bring that, or even hear a case about that would let it even go to the Supreme Court, which is the problem. Like, it starts at the smallest jurisdiction, the smallest level.
Yeah, it does start at the smallest level, but we have.
Because I don't feel like it's concerned for my well-being. I don't feel like, I don't feel like it's concerned for me at all. I just don't.
Yeah.
I don't. as a person that doesn't make a lot of money, even though I'm a college grad working on another degree, as a hardworking blue-collar worker, I don't feel represented in these systems as a person of color. I do not.
Yeah.
I don't have the Obama money or the Jay-Z money to defend myself. So I feel like if I get arrested for something at a federal level and I'm completely innocent of, I'm pretty much screwed.
Even on a local level.
That's just how. Exactly, especially if I'm in Florida or Texas or any of these places where these good old boy sheriffs, like, they just run rampant on stuff, man. I don't feel protected at all. I do not. I felt safer in a democracy in a foreign country than I do in the United States. I felt safer in South Korea than I ever felt in here in the United States. Which is why I'm not a criminal, because,
Did you see the story about the black college professor? It was just the other day, and it was lunchtime, and he was running to get some lunch, takeout someplace, then get back to teaching, and all of a sudden he's surrounded by a bunch of cops because he fit a description of an attempted break-in. Basically, the description was, had a jacket on, a hat, and he was black, and it was very, like, insightful piece. I mean, I already know that, like, people of color have it totally different with the criminal justice system from start to finish. But he's like, they wanted me to get in a car and drive me to this white lady to say if it was me or not. He says, I'm not going to sit in the back of a police car because I know everything changes then. I'm afraid to get in there, and so if this white lady just says, oh, yeah, it's him, I'm screwed, And he said, the hat had was totally unique. A friend had made it for me. There's no other hat like it. Right. So to say that I fit the description based on like a hat and jacket being black, it just wasn't fair. And I mean, he was just like, I couldn't take it.
I mean, I want to
hear those things being discussed. I want to hear those things being discussed at the Supreme Court when we have the presidential debates, when we have these debates as mayor, as governor. I want to hear those things being discussed. I want to hear laws that are going to be implemented that say if a person is in law enforcement, federal level, local level, and he executes someone, I want a strict law in place for that scenario.
Yeah. 100%.
Period. That's what I want to talk about. But it never gets talked about.
Yeah.
And then you want me to vote on things, but you want me to consider myself an American, but I can be shot for nothing.
Right.
And that's not being discussed. I don't give a shit about Ohio's sovereignty. Are you going to protect me from walking down the street and not getting shot for nothing?
Yeah.
That never gets discussed. Never. Ever.
And it's also very it's also very, very systemic. Like, the things that we don't talk about is, like, so the other day I had the unfortunate need to contact the police. And the 911 operator was looking for a description of me because she was trying to send an officer to me.
Wow.
Now, she asked, okay, could you describe yourself, please? And I'm like, well, I'm a man. I have long hair. I'm brown. And she's like, what race are you? I'm like, I mean, I can't. I was like, I'm a brown dude.
Doesn't matter.
Like, not only does it not matter, but if an officer is around looking for me and I describe myself as a black dude, they're not going to find me. If I describe myself as a white dude, they're not going to find me. If I describe myself as a Mexican, they might find me, but I'm not Mexican. So, all this stuff is super systemic. Like,
Yeah,
how do we get rid of racism when our society from everything even including the census is predicated on race.
yeah.
Some of
Well,
my
and I hear
white
my
friends
dad
tell
talk.
me if
I
we
hear.
just stop talking about it.
Oh yeah, no.
I,
White people are totally done with this racism conversation. They're just
Just stop
totally.
talking about it. It'll be okay.
well, I hear my dad talking about. He was big part of the Chicano movement in the '70s, and I hear him talking about some of the things they went through there. And he's light skinned. He has a lot of, as am I. And so it's there's problems in terms of that too, like him just having to convince people he belonged in the Chicano movement.
Oh no, I
You know,
can't tell you how many times I've had to explain to people that yes, I'm black.
yeah, and it's like,
I get called not black enough all the time because of the stuff I say. Because I don't support hood stuff. I'm not going to support hood. Like if you do a crime in a neighborhood, I'm going to call the cops on you, have you arrested. And because I say that, I'm not black.
No,
Because I don't
yeah,
support
no.
the no snitching rule. Like you're out of your damn mind.
Hey,
Be a snitch.
There's
James,
so many rules and bylaws of being black and being from the hood. It's insane. Like you're an idiot.
yeah,
You're an idiot.
James,
You
you
do
have
a
me
crime, you're going to
confused.
jail.
What's up,
James, you have me
Todd?
confused. I always call you my Asian friend.
I'm Japanese and I'm German and I'm black. So yes, I am your Asian friend.
I got a little
yeah,
Irish in me. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Nice.
I know I definitely have some European blood and kind of came up in a ancestry.com blood test and
Uh oh.
when the lady contacted me, she didn't realize like I didn't have a picture up, so she's like, oh, it looks like we have some shared ancestry and da 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 da. And I was like, oh, it kind of looks like it's, from this place in Virginia and this and that. And then, I was like, oh, well, here's, the link to my family tree. Check it out. And she blocked me
Uh
after
oh.
that.
Oh, she didn't realize she had that her ancestor was straight up sleeping with slaves.
yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
You're
People
gonna
So
are
get
we,
caught
so.
so
for a
I guess
fine
she's not
now.
racist
Oh my
because she
god.
didn't talk about it. Let's not talk about it. Let's not talk
Yeah.
about how,
I'm
we're
afraid
related
to do
because my great grandfather
ancestry.com.
was listed as mulatto. Like,
Right.
You know, there was. It's very interesting. I went back all the way to the 1590s in
wow.
the same 100-mile radius in South Texas with my family tree. And well, I say
Wow.
there was a lot of people that worked on that, not just me, and mostly not me.
Right.
But
Right.
we were able to connect it to the bastard son of the King of Spain, um, and who was land granted. That's the other thing about some of these. Am I still connected?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Um, that's the other thing about some of these subjects is they're complicated, right? Way back in my family, I had both Native American and also people who were granted giant swaths of land, right?
Mm.
And so if you look at it in terms of the Chicano Mexican American movement, you know, it's we have had a lot of oppression, but we've also had a lot of things handed to us.
Well,
So
that's like the Asian side of my family.
I knew it. I knew
Asian
it.
Asian folks Asian folks have a hard time joining the racism conversation because a lot of Asian folks, Japanese, Chinese, a lot of people, Indians, they consider themselves white because they are the native peoples of where they come from. I mean, Japanese is the closest to Euro white people that there is in Asia, since most
Mm-hmm.
Japanese folks are actually colonizers. But uh, we have a hard time joining this conversation because it's two sided for us, and I think the same thing for Hispanic or or Spain Spain uh, hereditary
Iberian Peninsula
folks.
people.
I'm sorry.
Iberian Peninsula people.
Well, Iberian Peninsula, but also especially via Central America.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. And I think that where the really, in my family, the really underrepresented side of it is the indigenous. And it's because Spain and the Spanish people who came into the New World were really, 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 really nasty to the indigenous people.
Super, yeah. And kept themselves set aside.
And then on that, it we very likely are. I'm descendant from a whole nother group of people, but a lot of Jewish people that came with the conquistadors and were assumed that they could just die off if they were sent north. And they found the Rio Grande River and survived, and then converted to Catholicism in order to survive. So it's super, super complicated, very interesting, but super complicated. And there's a huge history of oppression and a huge history of non-oppression and power, depending on what side of what individual granule you're looking at. So I don't know.
Yeah, and yeah, yeah. We all have to acknowledge our own privilege, I guess. It is true. It sounds like such a like squidgy talking point, but we all have.
Look, even my dog is white. Hello.
we yeah we
Little pup of cotton.
I mean I talk about it all the time in comments on social media, but yeah, the the fact that we live in the United States automatically puts us socially advantaged over 98% of the rest of the world.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Very true.
We could be homeless and just living in the United States have more money or more access than 98% of everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And
And I think I'm really glad that we can have these kinds of conversations, like on this particular forum, because it needs to be talked about. It needs
Yep.
we need to work through it, and just setting it aside is what's been done for decades and generations, and it needs to be talked about.
I say to a lot of my white friends when I have my uncomfortable conversations, I say, if we don't work on this, then eventually we're going to have some kind of civil war. Like we want to try. Like it's better to try talking about it than letting it get even worse than it is and have it boil over. I mean, it's kind of
Yeah,
like
and even make some errors or make some offensive comments accidentally because you didn't understand something.
Right.
If somebody stops you and says, you're a fucktard, stop that, then you learn something, and I think it's really important.
yeah, no, absolutely. Like if you make people can make mistakes. There's no reason, no, and in social media, which is the primary way we all connect now, for better or for worse, it's really easy to jump on people and be like, no, you're a hateful person, or whatever. I hate you. You shouldn't have said that. But at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
it's important to recognize when people are trying to correct their mistakes. And there's a fine line too, because you have to recognize when people are trying, and then also recognize when people are just making an effort, not actually trying. All of that's really hard to do. I had a really long conversation, as I referenced last week, with a conservative dude. he's serving in the well, he's not serving. He's a contractor for the Navy, and he and his wife have a house in my mom's town, and we got into it on Facebook comments about the law that about the law. The mayor of the town didn't pass a law. He issued a proclamation that stated that in a small corridor in the downtown, masks would be required outdoors. Businesses could choose to have mask required or not, as was their wish, but mask would be required as far as the town was concerned. And he raised a whole bunch of questions on the post, and perhaps he meant them truthfully. Perhaps he meant to have the questions answered in a truthful manner, but the questions were the same questions that people ask all the time when they're being disingenuous, when they're just asking questions for the sake of argument. And so where's that? How do we? You can't even apply Occam's razor to this, because sometimes the simplest way of looking at it, which is that everybody's coming at it honestly, isn't the truth. Sometimes that isn't the truth. People are coming at it dishonestly to ask these questions so that they can make a point, so to speak. So he was asking questions as to the constitutionality and legality of this order. When I talked to him face to face via Zoom, he was very rational about it and was honestly asking the question. And there's plenty of room for, is this legal? Is this a problem? Is this overreach? But I don't know. How do we?
I think the thing for me is, being that I'm in science, so I don't deal with how I feel and how I think it should be. I always deal with facts. So if someone starts asking these questions like, well, why is it this and not this? I actually literally respond with just facts. I don't argue any points. I literally just respond with just what it is. I mean, there's no, you can have an opinion about it, but whether or not it's legal or illegal, it's whatever it is, black and white, kind of like one of those things. And it's tough, now, where everybody's an expert. And it's kind of like people always want to question what you're saying. And, I love it when an actual expert pops in. Like there was a post on my hometown's webpage, and someone, was asking about the gym opening in Bryn Mawr. And the guy was like, you do know that, there's nothing like being out there right now is illegal. And some lady responded and was like, well, what about, your constitutional rights? And he responded, well, as a constitutional lawyer. And then he went into all the facts and just stopped. And she never responded after that, because he laid out the facts the way it is, because he's actually an expert. And I think a lot of people need to have the actual facts. And right now there's a whole bunch of opinions going out there, and it's not safe.
Well, I mean,
I keep hearing this whole thing about the flu kills more people, and I just always respond, it's May, bro. Like
it's May.
You're looking at the numbers for an entire year, and it's May. I don't know if you've noticed, there's 12 months in the year, and that is just not how this works. And I don't mean to. I'm never as snarky as I just was. I just say it's May, or it's April, or it's March. That happened on all three of those months.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, as to the expertise or the need for expertise, I always say it's important that we have these conversations on a somewhat equal footing, because you're an expert, in science. I'm not an expert in science. I'm an expert in arts and technology. Um, I don't. I'm only not an expert in science because I didn't have the access to uh, become an expert in science. And that's partially because I'm a mixed person. Like, I wasn't able to have access to things that other people were able to have access to. So social, yeah, there are things that are opinions, there are things that are facts, um, and it's hard to divide up those conversations sometimes, for both good and bad reasons. But like early on in my photography career, um, I would participate in discussions about copyright a lot. Um, there are facts of the law, um, but law is not a factual based system. Like the way
It's interpreted.
rulings are interpreted is not fact based. It's based entirely on social norms, and what the society in general decides. So, if society in general decides that that the decisions um, of a governor or of a mayor are the law, then judges are going to rule these are proclamations. How do we, you know, most of our civic duties as citizens reside in voting and serving on juries because that's how we can most effectively influence the law. But we have to have these conversations amongst non-experts in order to figure out what the law should be, I suppose.
Well, thanks to the current administration too, we have alternative facts. So, which are really opinions, but alternative facts now.
Do you think though that
Believe that.
Do you think that the democratization of information through the internet and the and just the way we work with information now has also contributed to that a little bit? Where if I have an opinion about something, I can go get a fact to back it up.
It is
Sometimes you have to
super
check the
good.
Right.
sources too, because it's there's a lot of information out there, and whether or not it's actually fact versus somebody else's opinion that's been put into an article.
Yeah.
Wikipedia. You have random people updating pages.
The big problem with modern media, and I'm not a big proponent of all media is bad, or media is the devil or anything like that. I think that's a bunch of bullshit too. But the big problem with modern media is that folks are have such a low barrier of entry, which is both good and a bad thing. You have people who can't put together sentences, being able to publish to an audience of hundreds, maybe thousands, where it used to be you'd have to get that opinion past somebody who had a broader base to judge that opinion.
There's a lot more emphasis on vetting before, which was a bad thing and a good thing.
Yeah, it was a bad thing in that it wasn't democratized. There weren't people, like you didn't have to have some special skill to be an editor at a book publishing house. You just had to be probably wealthy and white, but I don't know.
Well,
So
and censorship was a lot more institutionalized, I think.
yeah, yeah. So now you have the ability for um, going back to when I was participating in social media talking about copyright. I had a very limited experience with copyright. I'm just really good at reading and understanding. Like my understanding of the written word is very high, and I can usually pull out the meaning that was intended. But you had me, who is just high in reading comprehension, talking to somebody who had decades of experience in the industry, and them, speaking from their experience, saying, "Well, this isn't the way it works," and me saying, "It's the way it should work." Those conversations are important, but also you need to that conversation was seen by hundreds of thousands of people, and there was no barrier for me to have that conversation.
Hey, I got to hit the road, everybody. I hope you guys have a good day. I just want to leave you with this last little thing. Search on YouTube the history of white people in America. There was a wonderful mockumentary by Martin Mull and Fred Willard, and I think it came out around 1980. You'll enjoy it. It'll be 45 minutes of fun, I think.
I will post that to the chat, because I watched part of it. I'll have to find it, but yeah, it was
on YouTube. It's real easy.
It was really good. I watched part of it last night.
The food that white people eat is one of the funnest parts. It involves a lot of white bread and mayonnaise and cheese. I'll just say that. Right?
Yeah, it was hilarious. Well, thanks,
Well, I
Todd.
gotta go too. I have a meeting.
Yeah, and thank you everybody for sticking around for an extra half hour. I let this run over.
Great conversation.
Yeah.
All right, always.
All right, thank you, everyone.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Bye.